Hello, my name is Shilpa Vijayakrishnan, and I head the Education and Outreach Department at the Museum of Art and Photography, Bengaluru MAP. Welcome to Food for Thought, our beginner level masterclass in food writing. Over the last year, the pandemic has challenged us all in many ways. It has also pushed us to reevaluate many things in our lives. And for many people, it's also changed their relationship to food. Um, as humans, food is at the heart of who we are and what we do. But writing about food, to be able to truly evoke the visceral experience that food is an art in itself. And today, sharing her own journey and giving us all the tips and tricks to achieve this is the best-selling author, nutritionist, and Mint Lounge columnist, Dr. Nandita Iyer, who has connected to readers through her passion for food, wellness, and writing for over 15 years. Her most recent book, Everyday Superfoods, presents a step-by-step approach to improving your relationship with food as a way to enrich your wellness. Her full bio can be found in the chat box below. From all of us at MAP, Nandita, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I would also like to thank Priyanka from SignAble for doing the Indian Sign Language interpretation for today's session. And a quick reminder to everybody in the audience to address any questions that you have for Nandita using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can feel free to address these questions throughout the session and we'll take them at the end. Without further ado, Nandita, the stage is yours.
Hi, Shilpa. Thanks for having me over. And, while I have been writing on food for over 15 years, I have never taught or done a masterclass on food writing. So it was pretty insightful to think about all the things that I've been doing, some intentionally and some subconsciously, and just something learned over the years. So it was good to put it all together. And I do hope, though it's a short session and there's a lot to talk about or explain in this matter, but I do hope that it will give some pointers to the audience on how to go about food writing. And they know where to reach me on the social media platforms. If they have any further doubts in their journey in food writing, I'm happy to address them. So with that, we can get started. Can I start my screen sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay. So yeah, today's session is a masterclass on food writing. And while this whole subject is very vast, I'm going to try and focus on a couple of things, which is mainly writing on Instagram and writing for your blog or your newsletter. So it's like the shorter forms and the longer forms of food writing. Priyanka, I hope my speed is okay for you. Yeah, thanks. So let's talk about what are the kinds of food writing uh, that are there in today's markets. So one, of course, is Instagram, where, earlier it used to be a blog that like 15 years ago, people would first start off a blog if they had something to say. But in today's times, I think the first port of call is usually Instagram, because all you need is a picture and a few words, and you can convey what you want to convey without all the hassle of creating a blog. And like we'll discuss a bit later, a blog has got a lot of things going on, and it's not just easy as put a picture, put some words, and post it. So this is the first kind of food writing. Second, of course, is the blog that we spoke about. Third is a column, which if you are already a writer and if you've had a blog for many years, then you may get a chance to write a column with a daily or a weekly newspaper or a magazine. The fourth thing is features writing, which is either mostly freelancers. They pitch to the editors of magazines and newspapers, and depending on how good their idea is, how relevant it is to the audience of this particular publication, their idea gets approved or rejected, and then you can proceed to write your story for the magazine or any other publication. And the fifth, of course, is a book. So today we'll be focusing on Instagram and blog, and a little bit about recipe writing, because that's also got a few key points which are worth talking about. So how do we get started? Uh, it's the most obvious thing to say if you want to start writing about food, other than having a huge passion for food in general. You may not necessarily be a cook or someone who loves spending time in the kitchen, but you should definitely be passionate about some aspect of food, be it eating, eating out, or interest in different cultures or different markets or anything related to food, and not necessarily everything related to food. So even some aspect of it is good. So whatever it is, you have to read a lot of food writing, browsing websites, blogs. Nowadays so much of it is available online. You don't have to necessarily buy all these magazines and stuff. A lot of good free content is available. Subscribe to the best of the food newsletters, and just read a lot, which is when you will understand what is your niche, what is it that interests you. And for that you need to go through a lot of different varieties of food writing. The second thing, yeah, so this is how you find your niche. And I'll tell you why a niche is important, because when someone asks you what do you write and you say I write about food, now the universe of food is so vast that it doesn't spark any interest. And it's like saying I eat, so everyone eats every day, so there's nothing special about that. So when you say niche, you could be writing about gluten free food, you could be into something like vegan food, or you could be into cultures and communities and documenting community cuisine. Or you this is how, when someone is, say, doing an article on, say, home chefs, or someone is doing an article on the latest trends of gluten free food, that's when someone like you will come to their mind, and they will write about you, or they will take your quotes, they'll interview you. But if you're very general, then nobody will think about you for any particular thing, and you will not be on top of mind or in your reader's mind. And it's also tough to attract a niche community. I will come to that in a bit. So the other important thing to find out is, who is your audience? Now, is it someone who is a home cook who is looking for like quick, fast, easy recipes? Is this someone who likes to eat out a lot and therefore wants to know what are the latest haunts in town, what are the latest pubs, restaurants, cafes, etc.? Or is your audience someone who is deeply into culture and wants to read long reads about culture, communities, history of certain dishes, and this kind of thing? Now if you look at the people, they're like completely different kind of people. Someone who's a home person who just loves home food, home cooking, he's not the same as someone who likes to eat out a lot. And which is why you need to get your audience right, because the way you'll write and the way you'll be addressing them is completely different depending on who your audience is. You also need to decide on your frequency of posting, because if you are I'm talking about both Instagram and blog here. You need to have some dedicated frequency, so that it's not like you do one post and then you run away, because then again you lose connect with your audience. So to maintain that constant connect, you need to have a proper frequency. So you can decide that, like for a blog it could be once a fortnight, for Instagram it could be every other day. So whatever it is, stick to that. So now the most important thing here is, how do you describe food? And most of food writing is describing food, whether it's describing your own food that you've cooked, or it's describing the food that you ate in a restaurant, or you're describing food that was eaten in history. So it could be any kind of food, right? So mostly when you read blogs, you will find like very cliched words like yum, tasty, delicious, and these are so general. This could be said by anybody, and what does it say about the food? Nothing, right? It's just it's as good as you didn't write anything about it, because these are such general cliched words. So how do you go about food is more than just taste. when food comes to your table, or when you cook a food, it's the visual aspect of it, then the smell of it, which we rarely talk about, these things, the texture of it. So use interesting words and metaphors to describe all these aspects. Think of, like, say, a sizzler and comes to your table. The most pronounced aspect of this dish is the sound, the sizzle, and the smoke around it, more than the taste of it, I would say. So focus on these things, which are not always talking about the taste of the food. Of course, that is important, but that's not the only thing you talk about. So make interesting comparisons, which will come to you only if you read a lot in this space. Then you will know, okay, what do you compare, a chocolate lava cake, which is that molten center, what do you compare it with? So you'll get these kind of ideas rather than sticking to the jaded words. Then the other important thing is always, when you talk about the story behind a dish or who cooked the dish, like, you can look at Mumbai street food. Who are the people who are cooking this food, who are making the street food? They could be migrants from other parts of the country. Rarely they are, like, you will not find someone who's just been in Mumbai forever. I mean, there could be, but there's a story behind these migrants, and how did they set up, their stall here. Some chaat walas are there for like 25, 30 years. So isn't that an interesting story to say, rather than just saying that chaat was delicious? So look at these angles when you describe food. It's not just the taste of food. This is very important. There are more than a few points in the slide, so please bear with me. And when you talk about food, these are some important things to remember, the don'ts, uh, because the do's you will eventually learn, but these are important to remember. When you talk about any cuisine or any food, or even if you are reviewing a restaurant, don't be rude or insulting to the food or the chef or whoever the person is who has made that food. Never use adjectives like bizarre or odd or funny, because these are demeaning words, and you might find it weird or bizarre, but some community could have been eating this for hundreds of years. So that just makes us uninformed, and that makes us weird, because we don't recognize something that's been on for decades, and we haven't eaten it, so we find it odd or funny. So never use adjectives like that. um, okay. Don't be disrespectful of other people's food choices. Now, this whole food outrage is happening so frequently on social media, like the meat eaters insulting the vegans going after the meat eaters, and all this. So, please understand that food is an extremely personal choice, and it's very much a part of that person's life. So, never be disrespectful. You could have your own likes and dislikes, and that's totally fine. But in your writing, never show disrespect to others' food choices. Again, use don't never use descriptors like cheap, gross, ethnic, or a very generalized term like Asian. That just Asian involves like so many countries and maybe thousands of cuisines. So by saying that, it's just revealing our ignorance about a certain cuisine. Be very specific, and that actually shows that you have put in your effort to understand that cuisine or that community, and it shows that you have a sense of respect for their cuisine. Also, never qualify a dish with words like upgraded and elevated, like I'm making an elevated pav bhaji, or this thing, because that shows that the actual street food, you're trying to say that the actual street food is not good enough, and that you've tried to elevate it or make it more chic or fancy. So that's again disrespectful to that original dish. So never say that, just say you're making your version of it. So that's totally fine. And this whole appropriation of another community's cuisine, never do that without giving proper credit, without due understanding and research of that cuisine, getting things wrong, and that may cause like a temporary outrage, but that also shows our own lack of understanding. So never do that. And these are some of the don'ts, and it's good to remember this. Sorry, this is a longish list, but I think this is fairly basic to remember when you start out with food writing. So yes, so we'll with some basics in place, we will move on, and I'm first going to talk about writing for Instagram. So consider this the appetizer course. Um yeah. So, why are food captions on Instagram so important? Sometimes you have an arresting image, a beautiful picture, and literally that's all you need. Uh, but then sometimes that's a picture is not enough, and it's good to convey your thoughts through words as well. So, what happens is on Instagram, when you're scrolling through anybody's feed, you will only see two lines under every image. And then you have to actually click that read more for you to read the whole caption. So the what shows in the first two lines is literally maybe 10 words or 12 words, and that's all you have for your audience, to attract your audience's attention, to make them click the read more. Otherwise they're just going to scroll away quickly, and maybe if they don't read more, they will not like your post, or they will not leave a comment, or they'll not engage with your post, which is what you want when you post on Instagram. So how do you do this? So one is provide valuable information in your post, and that should be shared right at the beginning in the first line itself. That hey, I'm talking about this below. So that could be in food. That could be giving a recipe, or that could be giving a good deal about a kitchen appliance, like say a spice grinder, and you can say that hey, I'm recommending this because so and so, and there's this good deal going on now, and it's this brand. So if that's the information that's below, someone will definitely want to click more and find out. Or it could be something like say a restaurant, a newly opened restaurant, and if you post a beautiful table and say that I had my dinner here, or whatever, lunch, and then you want to share the details of that restaurant below. So that's when that vital piece of information is coming there, but then you have to announce upfront that I'm giving you this vital piece of information. So this is the second thing. But there's also, if you want to go beyond that two lines of Instagram, you can make use of this function called carousel posts, where Instagram allows you to post 10 images, right? So you could use either all of the 10 images, or five of the 10 images to write your text as a story, and use the other five to put pictures. Or there are some accounts who use all 10 images to just write the story. There are no pictures at all, and even those kind of posts do very well. So what do you write in these 10 posts? So I learned this from a friend, Pranav, who does this very well on Instagram. His I can't recall his handle right now. This is called the ida model. It's called attention, interest, desire, and action. So, how do you, the first slide should grab the attention of your reader. Otherwise, they're not going to make the effort to scroll through the rest of the posts. So, how do you grab someone's attention? By saying something completely controversial, or by saying that you're going to reveal, what, say, you are from Karnataka. So you say that I'm going to tell you what people in Karnataka were eating 1,000 years ago. Now that could spark someone's curiosity. Or say that, I had only three ingredients in my fridge and you want to see what all I made with that. So anything that just grabs someone's attention. And then slowly you build their interest over the next few slides. And then there's a desire. Or if it's like, say, you are talking about an appliance and you're showing pictures of different things that you've made with this, and you've sparked the interest, so then they have the desire to know what exactly is this appliance you're talking about. So then they're still with you, the audience is still with you, and then you tell them this is the appliance. And then your last thing should be action, which is like a call to action. You can ask people to share your post, or leave a comment, or say what they thought about it, or what is their favorite version of this. So that's the four parts in which you break up your 10 slides. And that's a great way to make use of the space without expecting someone to click on that read more. With that picture itself, you're making maximum use. And the way Instagram works is, if someone spends more time on your post, like even swiping or liking or commenting, anything, any interaction with your post, means they will show your post to more people, they will show more of your post to the same person. So it just helps you grow better on that platform. So these are the things that I already spoke about. So the first few words are all important. Provide valuable information below so people click on the read more. Make good use of the carousel posts, and remember this ida model, which you can split it over your 10 posts. So now coming to the main course, which is writing longer forms of food writing on a blog or a newsletter. Now, People may think blogs are dead and it's the age of the newsletter. Everyone has a newsletter. Even I have one, and I'm very regular with that every fortnight. But I'm not so regular on my blog. So the same thing that can go in a blog can also go in a newsletter. But the slight tone may vary and the kind of content you put may vary. But it's a similar kind of long form writing, which could be anywhere from 800 words to 1,000 words, depending on your topic. So writing a blog. Okay. Mm. What do you blog about? People think a food blog means it's always recipes, but recipes are the most obvious thing. But the food universe, like I said, is so vast. You can write about so many topics, which is why there are hundreds and thousands of food blogs about literally every aspect of food in the universe. So, like, say, you could talk about appliances, you could talk about markets, you could talk about in season produce and rare produce. You could talk about food of a certain community, do deeper research into the history of certain dishes. You can write, and you can write on the nutrition aspect of things. There is just so much to write about. I'm just giving you a few examples, but there's a lot to write about. And initially, when you get started, you may not find your niche, and that is totally fine. You may have a few interests in food, and you can start writing on these few interests. And depending on what gets you excited about and what gets more audience interested in, you can write on that topic. You can focus more on that topic. And also to remember, you don't necessarily have to cook to be a food blogger, which is why it's not always a recipe blog. So unless you're having a recipe blog, you don't necessarily have to be interested in the cooking aspect of food. But it's good to know some basic cooking, because that's when you will have a deeper understanding of food in general. So connecting with the audience, this is the second important thing to do. uh, a lot of times, even like a lot of us who started our blogs, we never thought who was the audience. We were actually just writing for ourselves. And we thought we write about what we are cooking today, and it was never a planned kind of writing. But when you visualize your model reader, like I said, is it a housewife, or is it a home cook who wants to feed better healthy food to their children? Is it someone who loves eating out, is a very outgoing kind of person? So visualize your model reader, and think of yourself as writing to that one person. Don't think like you're writing to the whole universe. Think of, when you're writing, address that one person, and write in your speaking voice as though you're speaking to a friend. You can just visualize this model reader, who could be one of your friends. Just keep them in mind, and think that you're writing them a letter. And that's when your writing will be so conversational, and that is the highlight of a blog. It's like your living room, and if your friend comes into your living room, you're not going to talk in very fancy language and complicated stuff. You're just going to be talking so simply, and like, hey, I did this today, and my day was crap, or whatever it is. So you just think of it that way. And that's how you have to talk. So that's how you have to write. When If you want to understand how to write the way you talk, you can experiment with a dictation software. So when you talk, the software just types out everything, and then you can actually compare it with your typed writing, and then you'll see the difference. That sometimes we try to sound very Tharurian and fancy, but that's not going to really connect heart to heart with your audience. So the other way to go about doing this is read your work aloud and check if it actually sounds like how you're talking. And if sometimes we write big words like nevertheless, contrary to the rule, and these kind of things, but do we ever use it in our day-to-day conversations? No, right? So then don't use it in writing. um, so be personal, and to the extent of, I'm not saying put your whole like dear diary out there on your blog, but keep it personal. um, and then hook the reader in the very first few lines, similar to Instagram. See, if you start rambling too much in the beginning, someone may just lose interest and hit the dreaded back button. You don't want that to happen. You want your audience to read your whole post. So the first paragraph, either you can start off with something controversial, so the reader thinks that how dare he or she say that, so I'm going to see how she's continuing this post. Or you can see, if you know your audience or your reader very well, you will know that maybe, suppose I'm talking to a working mother and I'm saying, how difficult it is to get breakfast ready in the morning when you have 100 other chores. So I'm going to give you some very quick breakfast ideas. So this already, you have identified your reader's problem and you're offering her a solution, him or her a solution. And, immediately your reader is going to stay connected to you. So if I ramble for the whole first paragraph about my life, how my day was, this, that, in the aim of trying to be personal, but I have lost my reader there and saying, I don't care. I'm going back. I'm hitting the back button. I'm going to find some other recipe or another blog to read. So don't do that. And use a range of emotions and how do you connect with the audiences through emotions. When there's no emotions, there is no connect. So don't just focus on the taste of food or the texture of food. Also weave in humor, weave in joy, sadness, suspense. This there are it's we are lucky that there are so many emotions already associated with food. So get a few of them in there and weave these into your storytelling, and this is how you build the human connect. And like a famous blogger, Shauna James Ahern, who writes on Gluten Free Girl, she says, write to connect, not to impress. So that should be your whole aim when you're writing. And so then that's why you need to know your target reader very well. So you should be able to tell, are they going to find your post readable, useful, enjoyable? So even if they're going to spend 5 minutes, you should have given them at least one good thing to take away and not wasted their time. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I have gone further down here. So all this was about connecting with your audience. The next is to be personal. So you can make the connection if you have evoked one or the other emotions, like I just explained to you. You have to be vulnerable and honest. You have to show your true self, again, without talking too much personal stuff about your life. So it's a fine balance, but do it in the context of food. Don't go rambling about your family life or something like that, because again, attention span is so vital that you can lose it in a second if you go on rambling. And sometimes all writers, or those of you who write regularly, know that the editor voice in our head is so strong. You could just write one sentence and that voice will tell us, hey, this is terrible, so just rewrite this or don't write this. So when you're writing first, don't let that voice dampen your voice. You just be free and you write the way you talk, and then we'll come to how to edit in the next section. So feel free and write, but and keep writing your personal stories in the context of food, and don't make it into a memoir every post, because that's not something that's going to hook the reader. And keep the ratio of useful information high. Now this next thing, developing your voice, is very important, because why? When, like, there are, see, if you're a recipe writer, and if there are a million recipes for palak paneer, why will someone read your version of it? Because possibly they like the way you explain, they like how you connect with them. So this is all about voice. And you know um, for any blog, a blog is never a formal like a book or a newspaper article or a magazine story. Like I said, it's like someone coming to your living room or your home, and that's how you talk to them. And your personality should shine through. So many times, in the heydays of blogging, if some people actually plagiarized and copy pasted our entire post on their blog, someone would just read that and then they would come and tell us, hey, that's your post that's been copied. Because everyone's style is so unique, and as much as we think you know otherwise, people can actually see you through your writing, and that's what you have to aim for when it comes to developing your voice. Otherwise, your post is just going to be a string of words, and it's never going to show the audience who's behind that. It does take time to develop your voice. You will not find it instantly. So you have to practice writing 15 to 20 minutes every single day, and automatically your voice will start being reflected in your writing. You should also read a lot. You read different blogs, different magazines around the topics that you will want to write, and you will keep absorbing all this subconsciously. And it's never, you should never aim at imitating someone else's style, because if someone comes home, just keep thinking about that. If someone comes to my house, I'm not going to try to behave like someone else. I'm going to be me, right? So you have to focus on that. Now I'm just checking the time. 15 minutes to go. And okay, I think I'll be on time. So, how do you get about actual writing? So, the first draft is called the first draft for a reason. Let yourself go. Don't let the editor voice scare you or try to intimidate you into not writing. And it can be terrible. That's why it's called a first draft. It is always terrible. So let that be and just get it done. Sometimes in trying to pursue perfection, we keep procrastinating things and saying, no, this is not good. I'm going to come back to this later. No, when you sit down, just make sure you write the whole thing, and no matter how it is. Um, Keep the writing simple and clear. I read something on Twitter on this account, Advice to Writers, and I really love this quote. It said that any word you have to hunt for in a thesaurus is the wrong word. There are no exceptions to this rule. So don't think that by substituting a simple word with a fancy word, the writing is going to get better. No, you should never do that, because you're just making things more complicated. And our aim is to keep things clear and simple and not waste your reader's time. Uh, okay. The second thing is avoid passive voice and avoid unnecessary adjectives and adverbs. You might think, oh my God, without adjectives, how am I going to explain? But sometimes, you know what, we end up using three, four adjectives before one noun. And just one good adjective would have sufficed. So that's just called flabby writing. You have to choose what is the perfect adjective to convey that whatever description that you want to convey about the thing that you're trying to explain. Adverbs, you can take any piece of writing and cut out all the adverbs in that, and it will make no difference to the end result. So again, just makes the post wordy and flabby without giving you anything in result. The words that you should lean on are action words, especially in cooking. There are hundreds and hundreds of action words, like say starting with cut, scoop, slice, stir, pour. There's so much action happening. Cooking is action, right? So lean on action verbs when you're writing about food. That just makes your writing more powerful, crisp, and also gives a good visualization of what is happening in the reader's mind. Um, so the writing style entirely depends on the post length. So if you're writing a very short feature or a short post like 400 to 500 words, you have to get straight to the point. There's no time or there's no extra words to set the stage, and like slowly get into the topic, which is called throat clearing. You don't have time for that. You have to straight get to the point. But if you have a 800 to 900 words, you do have a bit of space to set the stage. You can say something emotional, something controversial, something counterintuitive, something really interesting to grab the reader's attention. Because, when you want your reader to read 800 to 900 words, you need to have him a little more committed than reading a 400 word post, which they can just maybe in 3, 4 scrolls of the phone, that'll be done. But 800 to 900, again, leave some breadcrumbs, like say that I'm going to give you this really suspenseful thing in the end or something, so they do end up sticking with you till the end. And in your writing, in food writing or any kind of writing, you never presume that say you're using a very fancy term like mirpoa. Don't just assume that everyone will know what you're writing about. Of course, a few knowledgeable people will know, but explain things from first principles, and it's totally okay to annoy few of those very knowledgeable people. But your other readers who want to genuinely understand what this is, don't deprive them of a small explanation as to what it is about. So if you're using anything fancy, very technical, make sure you always explain it in your post. Then of course, you've written your post and everything, but and then you have to come up with a really catchy headline, because especially in the internet, it's all about the headline, and people do end up writing very clickbaity stuff, which I don't like. But you can find a balance between catchy and clickbait. So again, write something controversial or write something you know like counterintuitive, so that people will say, oh my God, what is she saying, let me find out more. And then of course the lead paragraph, which should be a little bit of an explanation or an extension of your headline, and then you get into your main post. So the lead paragraph is still holding the reader's hand by saying, hey, don't run away, I'm still going to tell you this interesting thing. Okay, so let's quickly, okay, we're on time. Let's quickly talk about editing. So now, like I said, just dump everything in your head when you're writing your first draft, because that's why we are spending a lot of time on editing. So don't worry about your first draft. Okay. Um, so the first thing here, let me just, yeah. Um, so, I always believe in this, that space out the writing and the editing. I don't like to write and then instantly start editing that piece as soon as I've finished writing. There are a couple of things here. One is, you've seen that same piece for like 2 hours, 3 hours, or how much ever time you spent writing that. And instantly your mind will not try, mind will, and your eyes won't find the mistakes, or because you are so close to your work, you've just finished writing and you felt very good about it, you will feel everything is sounding wonderful and you will not find any mistakes in your work. And even if you do, you will think, no, 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 I have written this just spending so much time, I don't want to delete this. So that kind of attachment to your work is there, and you will not be a good editor. So the best thing is finish off your writing after a good night's sleep. It's always good to edit in the morning. That's what I believe in. uh, the best way to edit is read out aloud. In Microsoft Word, there's also that read aloud function, which you can use in annoying accents. But if you don't mind that, you can make it read the piece. And a lot of small mistakes will come up when the thing is reading. Sometimes it's just easy to correct those mistakes. Um, you know, uh, the other, yeah. The third thing is the rhythm of a sentence. This again will be visible to you only when you read it out loud, because it's bad writing to have every sentence of the same length. It doesn't sound good, or it doesn't even read good. So it's good to have some smaller sentences, some longer sentences. Again, the length of each sentence is said that it should not be beyond what you can read in one breath. If it's too long, then you can cut it down into two sentences, or cut down some of the extra words of the out of the sentence. Um, the whole thing about editing is that attention spans are so small that you can't afford to get attached to the words that you have put down. So you have to edit ruthlessly, so that your end result is tight and it's pacey, and you're not wasting your reader's time. So like the image here says, write without fear, but edit without mercy. Even if you're editing your own work, you have to be ruthless about it. So repeated words. Sometimes what happens if you're trying to say the same thing in different ways, and you're in the same sentence, you've repeated words, or sometimes like in a food writing, you're just saying delicious, delicious, delicious multiple times. So you should always make sure that you're not repeating the same word many times in a sentence or in a paragraph. If it is repeated in the same article, there should be a good spacing between its appearances. I already told you about adjectives and adverbs. Edit these ruthlessly. Uh, Detached editing, also I spoke about that. It definitely helps. So when I was writing my book, Everyday Superfoods, after I submitted the manuscript, the pandemic struck, and then it came back to me after almost 6 months. And after 6 months of submitting my work, I was so detached from my work that I literally rewrote 4 chapters, changed the order of chapters, because everything felt like it was not so good to me. So I was that detached. So even that's not too good, because then you will start hating your work. And then after I finished everything, redoing everything, that's when I was like kind of satisfied that, okay, now this is sounding good. So definitely putting some time between your first draft and your editing makes you see it with a fresh pair of eyes and gives you a great perspective. So that was all about editing. If you may have any questions on this, please put it in the Q&A box and I'm happy to address. Okay, quickly, let's go through recipe writing. And you may think, what's there to recipe writing? It's just method, ingredients and method, and there's no big deal. But there is a big deal, and there's a certain process to be followed to the T, without which, you are wasting your reader's time. Because if someone is going to keep time aside to try your recipe, go spend money in buying all the ingredients and have a plan of feeding their family, it better turn out right. So you have to follow these rules whenever you're writing a recipe. There should be a brief description, and this description could be anything about the history of the dish, about your personal relationship with the dish, or why this your recipe is something different as compared to the others. So it could be any such thing, but it should give the reader an idea as to what is to expect. Uh, then definitely time taken and servings, because it's good for your reader to know that how long will they take and how many people can they serve with this, because many people, just by seeing the ingredients, they may not understand how to go about this. Ingredients, very important. The ingredients should always be mentioned in the order of appearance. Like, first, if I'm adding oil, then oil should be first. So a lot of people don't do this, and this is the key thing about writing ingredients. It has to be in the correct order. You can't go back and forth. You can't write the last ingredient first and the first ingredient last. Measurements, stick to standard measurements. Don't write things like katori or one bowl, because everyone's house katori is different, and it will not turn out. If you are giving a proper recipe, you should use either grams or weighing scale or the standard measuring cups, so it can be standardized, and your reader will also get the exact result as what you got in your house. Again, method should be stepwise, and like I said earlier, don't presume that they know anything. Go explain all the first principles. If you're asking for some different kind of ingredient, you can also go ahead and explain why that is there and what that's going to do in the method. So that also helps them understand instead of just blindly following something, right? Like, if you're saying add baking soda, you can say that baking soda helps cook the chickpeas faster or something, so they'll understand why it's being used. In the end, you can always give notes are for what you can substitute with what, and you know anything, like if you don't have this, if it turns out like this, you can add this to repair it, or anything, any special mentions. Like I said, use a lot of action words in recipes. Sometimes in the method you just see add this, then add that, then add that, so every step starts with add. Don't do that, because you have so many different words that you can use in your things, like pour, cut, stir, drizzle, transfer, scrape, scoop. So many words are there. Use those. And most importantly, attribution. If you are inspired from some other blog or a cookbook or a TV show or anything, it's always graceful to give the attribution as to where you got this recipe, because not every recipe is our imagination, and it's very nice to attribute it to the source. So yeah, I'm happy I finished exactly at 6:45, and I'm happy to take your questions now. I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Hi, Nandita.
So yeah, I'm Saffron Trail on all the platforms, and this is my book, Everyday Superfoods. So you can go check it out if this is of something that interests you. I'm just going to.
Right. Thank you for that. I think that was.
I am so sorry if I went fast, because I wanted to finish on time, Priyanka. I hope it was okay. So sorry. Okay.
I think you've actually given us all a lot of food for thought, quite literally, as the title seems quite appropriate. There are a couple of questions from the audience. So I think a couple of them are to do, quite specifically with some of the different kinds of writing that you've covered, practical questions. Should we ask, what is a good platform to post one's blog, for instance?
Okay.
What would you recommend?
In like 15 years ago, most of us started on Blogger because it was the simplest thing. You just needed your Google Gmail, and it was free and it was easy. But I would definitely recommend WordPress if you're starting off now for a blog. And if it's a newsletter that you're starting, I would definitely recommend Substack. Substack, because it's very easy to understand, and it's if you don't want to charge for your newsletter, then it's free for you also. When you charge, they take a small percentage of whatever you're charging, so which is very fair. And blog WordPress, because it has a lot of different widgets and a lot of functions which Blogger does not give, and you should always assume that your blog will grow and you will need a better and a robust platform for it. So choose the good one from the beginning, so you don't have to migrate. later on, etc.
Um, since you talked about newsletters as well, Chitra Kalyani has asked, what are some good food blogs or newsletters that you would recommend?
Okay. Uh, I will talk about newsletters. There's this thing called Vittles from London, which talks a lot about cuisines from around the world. Like recently, someone had written about Yugoslavian cuisine and how the country went off the map, and the cuisine saw itself hanging because there's no mention of it because the country no longer exists. So people don't even write about that cuisine anymore. So it was like a touching, beautiful piece. So Vittles writes about a lot of, they call in different writers. So it's not just one person. You get to read a variety of things. Then there's this thing by Alicia Kennedy, I think from the desk of Alicia Kennedy is another one. There are quite a few, but if someone just asks me offhand, I can't remember. But if you can ping me on Instagram or something, I will send you my list of newsletters.
Any blogs that you particularly enjoy?
Blogs, quite a few, but off late, even I've been lagging behind on my blog reading. One blog I really love is Root to Roots by Sheetal Bhatt. It's Root, Route, the number 2 and Roots. She documents a lot of Gujarati cuisine, and one might think Gujarati cuisine is just one cuisine, but there are so many sub cuisines of different communities and like with their own nuances, which she showcases beautifully. That's one Indian blog I like. And my old favorite international blog is 101 Cookbooks, which I really like. So these two are the ones that come to my mind.
Right, thank you. Okay, a couple of more questions in terms of blogs. So I'm going to just kind of club 2 questions from Sandhya and Rakhi together, who both asked about blogging in terms of its sustainability and its relevance. So A, is blogging still relevant to today, as opposed to 15 years ago when blogs were a much bigger thing? And how sustainable is it as a full-time kind of, professional venture?
Yeah, you're right. Like blogging isn't as fashionable as it was 10, 12 years ago. But I have blogger friends who are working full time on their blogs and earning like $1,000, $2,000 revenue per month just by ads. So if you want to take it as your full time thing, it's still very relevant because like literally millions of people are searching for recipes online. And what I didn't touch upon in my blog writing slides was SEO. You can write beautifully, but if you don't know how SEO works and how your blog won't be discovered by people who are doing a Google search. So that's also important. And like initially, maybe once you start writing regularly, you can understand how SEO works. And SEO is the exact opposite of everything I explained now. Because when I apply SEO to my blog, I feel like, what nonsense is this have I written on my blog? Because it's like you're writing everything to suit the SEO, like a certain phrase has to appear so many times. A certain paragraph has to start with these certain keywords, and it is the exact opposite of beautiful writing. So if you want to still continue to write beautifully, you can forget about SEO and you can forget about Google traffic. But if you want to monetize your blog and make sure there's a ton of audience, then definitely retain some of these elements that I've spoken about. It is tougher to balance all the things that I said with SEO. It's not impossible. You can still do it. But yeah, so sustainable. So yeah, many people are making solid, good incomes from their blogs alone, because as long as people are searching for recipes online, and this happens more with recipe blogs. If you're writing about some obscure thing about eating out, all that has a shelf life. But say if I posted a recipe on how to make filter coffee, that kind of post has a very long shelf life. Like for 10 years, the post I had written on my blog was number 1, which I had written without any SEO or that too. But then, of course, too many SEO wale posts took over, and then my post was nowhere to be found in the Google search. But all I'm saying is, if you write a relevant post, which has a very long shelf life. That's the kind of blogging that's sustainable. If you write very obscure things, I mean, how many, like every day, if I'm just writing what I ate today, what I did today, that kind of stuff doesn't really have much search potential or sustainable thing. Even you will get bored of writing that every day, because how different is our life going to be on a day to day basis, right? But yeah, so newsletters are really the hot new thing, like as in podcasts also. And after years and years of thinking about it, I started this year in February, and I'm really enjoying that. Also because I don't stick to food alone in my newsletter. It allows you to write about multiple other things, and depending on what niche you have selected for your newsletter, so it gave me like a second chance at writing other things too. So I write about home decor, about mindfulness. I mean, nothing stops me from writing that on my blog, but I just felt good writing about this separately. And newsletters are something you can monetize on their own, so you can charge people for reading your newsletter. And even so you're not at the mercy of Google search. It goes straight into people's inbox. And if you have built a good connect with your audience, and people, like a lot of people tell me that yours is the only newsletter I open, rest everything goes off into that thing. And that keeps me going, because sometimes I send it out on every alternate Wednesday, and then Tuesday morning I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to write? But I make sure, even if I'm sitting up all night, I make sure that I have done that. It's like a personal deadline, and it's this connect with my reader that they're expecting it, and I have to send it out. So blog, no one is holding a sword to your neck. If you don't post it today, you can post it tomorrow. But ideally, you shouldn't do that with a newsletter. You have to be really punctual. If it's like some people do it first of every month, you have to send it out first of every month. So that's the two things. But if you haven't started blogging at all, I would definitely say you can start off with a newsletter directly. If you're not, because that's a different kind of a monetization, different kind of a brand building. Tomorrow other brands may want to associate with you for writing about them on your newsletter itself. So while the format is similar, the platforms are different, and ways to monetize it are different.
Right. Avni Patwardhan asked, how do you approach magazines for columns and features? What would be the best possible route?
Okay, good question. See, for writing for any external uh, media, you have to have a good body of work, that you've already done. So, which is why having a blog, having a newsletter, showing that you've written for so many years, and this is your writing. Uh, just blindly, if you haven't written for anybody, if you haven't written at all, and then suddenly you pitch to them, because nobody is going to give a chance. So which is why first step is to start writing regularly for yourself in any platform, like blog or a newsletter or any such thing. The second thing is, you should have read a few issues of the magazine or the newspaper that you are pitching to, because only then will you understand their style. Every publication has their own in-house style, and they stick to that no matter what. So you need to know their style, you need to know the kind of topics that they carry. And even within the topics, what are the, like, say, take for example Vogue. They have something like lifestyle, they have fashion, they have something else. So in each of these also, what articles they publish. So unless you read thoroughly all these things, you will not know. And the minute you pitch something random which doesn't fit in with their exact scheme, the editors come to know that this person has not read my stuff at all, so they won't even bother responding. So and you have to come up with interesting pitches, and not like the same. And you'll also know what topics are already done over the last. You can also do an internet search and find out. Most magazines have their back archives online. So once you know that, and you suggest something completely fresh, trending topic, or something that's useful, seasonal, etc., then definitely they will look into it. And so once you do a first few things, then it's always easier, because once you've got a few bylines, then it's always easier to approach others and say that, hey, I've written for all these people. But it's always tough. It's like your first job. Everyone wants some prior experience. And even in writing, it is the same. But I think most definitely a lot of us bloggers benefited from just blogging no matter what. Don't care who's reading, doing what. This is your, just be rigorous about this and do it for yourself. It just makes you a better writer. It gives you like a whole, it's like a it's like a, what do you say, a portfolio of your own writing. And you can see the post that you wrote 10 years ago, and then today you'll be cringing, what did I write? Because you do improve. So for all these reasons, you should start off somewhere. And Instagram doesn't count because no editor will accept that you've been writing on Instagram. So you have to have some other kind of platform.
Nivedita asks, how do you bring novelty to recipe writing when you're writing the recipes of well-known dishes? So since the components, methodologies are the same, how do you make it exciting?
A very good question again. Like I said in the description or the start of a post, that's the space for you to show your personality. Because in no blog are you directly going to jump to the recipe and start off straight with ingredients. You'll at least write 200, 250 words or as an introduction. And that's where you can write your personal connect with the recipe. Say, take for example, palak paneer. It's good to give the reader a sense of why they should try your recipe and why you should convince them that why this is going to work for you. You can also start with something funny, like, whenever I made palak paneer, it would always turn out black and, disgusting to look at. So that's kind of self-deprecation. Again, evoking emotion. So make it personal. I'm sure you have a certain story, or like the paneer was so rubbery that, if I threw it on the wall, it would just bounce back or something like that. So when you start off something funny, it just instantly hooks the reader, and maybe nobody else has had that experience as you. Like they say in I've read this about a lot of writing where people say, so many people have written about this, why should I write about this? Who will read it? Because you haven't written about it. So when you write about it, your take on that subject is going to be totally personal, and that happens only if you retain that voice, if you write personal. Like I explained, like someone is sitting in your living room, you are telling your story of palak paneer. So it doesn't matter if everybody has written about it. Definitely, there's going to be some new thing in which you're saying. And in how to write the recipe itself, there is nothing unique. Like I said, just use a lot of action words, because a lot of blogs tend to think recipe writing is very boring, and they'll just make it very mechanical. Add this, pour this, do this, and also give visual cues, like when this thing looks like this, and keep it honest. A lot of blogs will also say caramelize the onions for 2 minutes. No onion has ever caramelized in 2 minutes. It takes at least 25 to 40 minutes for the onions to caramelize. So the minute you start giving out these kind of details, and you can also say, like, look, every recipe on the internet will say 2 minutes, but that's a lie. But it's just going to take you 30 minutes, but it's going to be worth your effort. So when you put in your personal commentary like this, that person will remember that, hey, this person wrote this recipe. So do it that way. I think those are my points that I will give.
That's very true. I do recall this being a thing the very first time I tried to caramelize onions, because it was supposed to take just a minute or two, and then it was just taking forever. One last question that we'll take before we close for the evening. You've mentioned that you only take 30 minutes for cooking. So can you please share a little bit more about meal planning for millennials?
Oh, that's the topic for another webinar altogether. I'll give you a few things that I do. Like typically things like dal, beans, then certain pesky things like shelling pomegranates and all that. These take time. So, it's no point sitting and like, if I want a little bit of pomegranate to add to a salad, then sitting and peeling the whole thing at that time, I'm not going to have the patience for that. So when I do one thing, sometimes it's just faster to focus on that one chore and do it for like 2, 3, 4 dishes and keep it ready in the fridge. So it's just easier to do it instantly when you're ready to put it together. Things like, say, if you're cooking brown rice, it's going to take half an hour in the pressure cooker. So why not do it for 3, 4 meals and keep it there? If you're cooking like chole or rajma, again, you have to soak it overnight. So if I say, add some chole to your salad, you'll say, Arey, I have to soak for 12 hours for that, and it's never going to happen. So unless you have these ingredients prepped and ready to go, it's even especially if you want to eat healthy, healthy eating is just a lot of planning, and more than anything else, it's planning and being ready for these things, because these ingredients you can't because what you see is what you eat. If these things are not in your fridge, or if all other unhealthy things are there, you will grab that. So one is definitely beans, two three kinds of beans, at least I keep two kinds in the fridge, like things like coriander. You won't believe it. Earlier, even I would never bother. I would keep the bunch of coriander. Then, when I required it, I would wash a little bit. Then I would dry it. Then I would chop it and add it. But now I'm just too busy these days. And sometimes, earlier I would not eat certain dishes without coriander. I won't touch the dish. But now I'm just so lazy. I said, even if it's in my fridge, I will not add the coriander. So, what I've started doing is when I buy it, I remove the roots. I wash it very well. Then I spread out everything on the table on a towel, and once it's completely dry, I chop it finely, and then I keep it in a box layered with tissue. Now I'm happily adding handfuls of coriander to everything, because it's easily see, like, imagine those 4 steps I have to do like 3 times a day, and now I do it once in 4 days, and it stays fine once you've really made sure it's dried up. So this is the essence of meal planning, where certain things are available. And does a poha taste good with coriander? Hell yes, it does. So then I'm just so happy to add it now, because I don't have to. I just open my fridge, open the box, and happily add the stuff. So it's about making cooking enjoyable for yourself, and not so tiresome. Use the fridge, use the freezer. The next question is always, is there nutrient loss? Not significant enough. If you're between ordering from Swiggy, Zomato versus doing some meal prep and keeping in your fridge, the latter wins hands down. So don't worry about that.
All right, I think we're at 7:01. So it seems like an appropriate place to close on, because you're saying it's all about prep. And in some ways, if writing about food also seems all about, just giving it that shot and going in. So thank you so much, Nandita, for coming on today and giving us your time. It was brilliant to sort of learn from your own insights and all your experience over the years. The links to where you can find Nandita's most recent book and her blog have already been put on the chat box. And thank you to all the audience for coming on today as well. Thank you, Priyanka, also for signing for us today.
Thanks, Priyanka. And this is the first time I've spoken with a sign on the side, and I think it just makes me very happy. And I think this should be the norm in all the talks. And thanks, Map, for having me over. And I would love to, see more of your work. It's lovely to know that such organizations exist and they're doing this great work. And thanks, audience, for joining us today. I hope you learned a bit of something from my 45-minute very speedy talk. So bye, everybody.
Bye.